This video is sponsored by DJ The Lazy Gamer and Crimson Manifesto. Hey guys, before we begin, I am actually going to go ahead and get all of my shoutouts out of the way now, because I don't want you guys to miss all of this, and I really do want you to go and support all the people who help support me. First and foremost, I had a lot of help from friends. Like, a roommate of mine actually sat down with me for like a whole night almost and just helped me kind of think out what I wanted the story to be. This goes especially for my pal Piccolo Jr, who helped me get my thoughts for this part scripted out. Audio wise, Mard aka Jim once again stepped in to help me with all the audio editing and kind of balancing and stuff like that, but we also owe a massive shout out to Dragon University providing the vast majority of voices for this project, but also to Forenza ASMR and RuneScribble for providing the voices of Kale, Caulifla, and Kefla. Finally, visuals wise, while the editing of this project was handled by myself, I still had the help from a bunch of official render collectors like Max Uchiha, as well as the artists I myself commissioned such as Zala, Cobb's Arts, and Jurgen Draws. They created everything from a few custom character renders to parts of the manga featured in the portion covered by our special guest, Mono Cool. So obviously we also owe a big shout out and thank you to him. Aside from that, there are also a few miscellaneous character renders that are used throughout the video. I will do my best to find the original artists of those and have those listed in the description. Now lastly, before we get into it, I feel extremely justified in bringing to your attention this screenshot from my analytics. A lot of you guys aren't currently subscribed, and I have to ask you to please do so, because I really went all out on this finale, and I want to be able to do that stuff more and more, do bigger and better stuff in the future, but without your full support, that will not be possible. It just can't work. So for the love of Kami-sama, do all the YouTube things. Leave a like, comment your thoughts or screams of rage, share the video with everyone you think may enjoy it. And once you've got all that done, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
A Namekian calamity during the Tournament of Power, the finale of What If Piccolo Turned Good Early begins now.
As the Grand Priest call for the tournament start rings out, Piccolo as Team Universe 7's leader simply gives a pre-established hand signal to direct each member's opening move in the chaos, as the 7 other participating universes and their fighters begin an all-out war with one another. Suddenly, in blurs of motion, our heroes scatter, 3 appearing away from the action as Piccolo, Vegeta, and Goku stand high atop an outcropping of rock, which gives a good vantage point over the entire tournament grounds, and can act as an easily defended position as Nail, Gotenks, Gohan, and Buu surge out a short distance away from them to act as a vanguard.
I know this goes against everything you two trained for, but we can't take any chances here.
We get it, but man, this is the coolest tournament in the history of tournaments. And here we are sitting it out.
God, this is cruel and unusual punishment for Saiyans. Keep calm and pay attention. We'll definitely have to fight at some point, so now our advantage lies in saving energy and gathering info. For example, we aren't the only ones sitting the initial scuffle out.
Piccolo responds while bringing Goku and Vegeta's attention to a similar outcropping on the other side of the battlefield, currently perched upon by 3 members of Team Universe 11. Below in the heat of battle, the prime fighters to keep one's eyes on begin quickly distinguishing themselves as the strongest and most skilled, with the bulk of them being fighters from Universes 6, 7, and 11, while the majority of fighters from the remaining universes prove themselves unable to match that power, but via their more gimmick-dependent and tedious fighting styles provide a tough challenge all the same. Meaning Gohan and Nail as sub-leaders of their team are forced to contend with their opponents as they guide the childish likes of Gotenks and Buu, while they irresponsibly marvel at all the new and interesting fighters and their styles. As a result, not going all out from the start, even in some cases allowing their opponents the chance to transform and even critiquing said form changes. And this combined with every team having had a full week to prepare makes each individual knockout much harder to score. And because of this, the Universe 7 Vanguard squad are slowly separated and begin to spread out into 2 smaller duos.
Looks like Piccolo's plan backfired.
Gripes beers from his place next to Whis in the stands, which fill with the weakest fighters present at an agonizingly slow pace, due to their teammates having specific tactics and moves meant to keep their teams whole and in the competition, nearly the opposite of Piccolo's multi-phased and self-sacrificial approach. Even so, Champa jealously yells for Hit, Frost, and Kaba to do the same as Beerus' fighters, while Kale, Caulifla, Salanel, and Polina are told to do whatever it takes to keep them out of the fight and fresh. In response, gods like Kitella, Hellas, Rumshi, and Mule order their fighters to keep up the pace and knock out as many of the heavy hitters as manageable, obviously wanting to win in a war of attrition rather than pure power as Piccolo predicted. This invigorates Kasuro, Kettle, Coquette, and Tupper, who fight together with ferocity, discipline, and synchronicity against the vast bulk of fighters not targeting Universes 6 or 7 out of spite. And so over time, more and more eliminations begin to take place, opening more fighters to engage with one another. Such is the case with Nail and Buu, though only now does the Namekian student of Piccolo recognize his ill partnering with the rambunctious Majin, whom had near instantly gone rogue from fighting alongside him in order to battle against the much more interesting Maiden Squad and Universe 4 fighters. Suddenly, he feels 2 powers that make him shudder, and turns to see Universe 6's Namekian standing behind him, while inspecting him quizzically.
Tell me,
Did you two?
Indeed. We have each assimilated half of the entire population of Namekians in Universe 6, because we refuse to let our people die out, which is why we have a proposition for you and that other Namekian. Realizing what this means, Nell tries to leap away, but when he lands, the other two are already there, standing behind him once again. Realizing he has no other choice, he activates a Super Kaioken, blasting the duo in the face and making his escape at 50-fold the speed this time. The smoke created from his attack clears the way to reveal that Nell's assumption of the two underestimating his base power as his true maximum was correct, as neither had the time to defend themselves, and so allowed him to blast nearly half their bodies away. Thankfully, not a lethal blow for a Namekian with sufficient enough healing power like he could assume they had, but definitely a good stun maneuver so he could make his escape, make room between them, and inform Piccolo and the others of the unforeseen threat in Universe 6's arsenal. However, as if at light speed, their wounds heal, and both suddenly halt him by stretching and wrapping their arms around him until he begins to tire himself out with the Kaioken. As Nail falters, they begin to explain their proposal to him more passionately, as they now recognize what an asset this Namekian, and more importantly, the Kaioken could be. Meanwhile, the Hybrid Saiyan fighters of Universe 7 find themselves coming face to face with the Pure Saiyan fighters of Universe 6. While Gohan is wary, Gotenks finds himself quite anxious, seeing as how these girls don't appear to be too much older than Videl when Goten and Trunks met her as 7 and 8-year-olds. But as he is now made up of 13 and 14-year-old adolescents, the prospect of showing off for and impressing cute older women is intriguing to Gotenks. Caulifla then taunts the two wimps to quit gawking and get to slugging, as Kale squeaks in agreement next to her while powering up to back her object of affection. Gotenks smirks and fires himself up into Super Saiyan 1, allowing him to zoom behind the two base form Saiyans and causing them to gasp at his speed. Caulifla growls that Kaba showed her how to do that too, before she too bursts into the golden form and launches a kick that beheads the afterimage of the fusion warrior, while the real one suddenly appears in front of her face and excitedly says that she's super cute before asking her name. Angered at the insolence of this punk on the field of battle and in love, Kale suddenly grows enraged and tries to put her haymaker through Gotenks, only for him to swirl a finger and bind her legs with a galactic donut, so she trips and falls before him. Kale snarls up at the younger Saiyan, while Gotenks flashes to Super Saiyan 2, taunting that if they ask him nicely, he'd be happy to show them how to reach even higher levels than wimpy old Kaba. At this, Gohan cuts in, reminding Gotenks that these two are their rivals, and not to mention, they had enemies all around them, as the trio de Danger suddenly ambushed the 4 Saiyans, along with the remainder of the Universe 9 fighters. As she helps Kale up, Caulifla smirks at the opportunity in front of her, and offers a truce if Gotenks follows through on teaching them the higher forms of Super Saiyan. At the same time, Boo has actually done away with the entirety of the Maiden Squad and a few of Kitela's most troublesome warriors all by himself, proving himself to be such a powerful and tricky threat that the rest of these two Universe support fighters choose instead to try and overwhelm the Universe 11 fighters, ending in a stalemate which of course bored the Jin. However, before he can loaf around, Piccolo would telepathically warn him to stay alert and go aid Nail, as he's getting a bad feeling from his opponents. In the same matter of minutes, the 9th Universe finds itself completely eliminated at the hands of the Saiyan tag team of Universe 6 and 7. And so, once recovered from the existential horror of how easily the Omni King can wipe away their existence, Gotenks decides to make good on his promise. Thus, as Gohan had warned, quickly has two former students now fighting nearly on par with him as Super Saiyan 2s. Thankfully, the more experienced warrior knows there is still a gap in power. However, still wanting to impress the duo, Gotenks decides to brag about an even higher form, causing Gohan's blood to run cold, as he sternly tells Gotenks to cut it out, reminding him that he's already made their opponent stronger by leaps and bounds. So if he was worried about a fair fight, they should be able to have it now. But smirking, Gotenks simply says,
It's not about being fair, it's about being cool. And nothing says cool like Super Saiyan 3.
He then begins the somewhat cumbersome process of powering up, and before long has transformed into the wild-haired, eyebrowless form.
Badass.
What's so funny?
Well, you kinda looked like you were taking a dump while transforming, and no power-up is worth somebody's eyebrows.
I did not! Shut up!
Look, dude, I don't care. I just wanna beat ya. Yo, Kale, help me out here!
I'm with you.
The two girls then pounce on the heavily blushing and flustered Gotenks, having been stunned by his pride taking a hit before he did physically. And while he does have a lot of faith in his half-brother's strength, Gohan can't risk Gotenks getting in over his head and being knocked out of bounds so early on. So he joins the fray as well. The two duos clash in the middle, with Gohan facing Kale and attempting to guide her through her rages, while Gotenks is busy with Caulifla. And between Gohan's experience and Gotenks' raw fusion power topped with Super Saiyan 3, the advantage is squarely with Universe 7's boys. As a blow from Gotenks knocks Caulifla into a rock, and the brash young woman screams in frustration that she can't keep up anymore, Gotenks teases not to feel bad, since he only achieved this form through fusion. At this, Caulifla looks surprised, saying that she didn't know that he was a fusion, then grins wickedly that she thinks she knows how she's she's gonna get that form now. Gohan, who was holding back an agitated Kale and instructing her on a really good breathing exercise, face palms that those two blabbermouths weren't meant to say anything about being a fusion, but he isn't given a chance to chastise them as his attention is soon caught up by something small and green sailing towards him with a cry of heads up. It is a Brotari ring, and when Kale easily catches it before Gohan can even fully register it, she clips it onto one ear as Caulifla does the same on the other ear. The two are then flung towards each other, and when they meet, there is a flash of light, from which a new figure is born. A slender young woman dressed in red with the blue eyes of a Super Saiyan and the greenish-yellow hair of Kale. In the dual voice of a fusion, she declares,
"The name's Kefla. I'm here to kick ass, take names, and win this tournament for the sick. Bring it on!"
And since the team from the 7th other than Piccolo are unfamiliar with Potara fusion in this timeline, this has been a very confusing few seconds for Gohan and Gotenks.
If you're a fusion, how come you aren't dressed like me? Dang it!
There is clear disappointment in the teenage fusion's voice, and when they realize what he's getting at, both Gohan and Kefla bonk him on the top of his head for being a creep. As a pair of comically large lumps pop out of Gotenks' wild gold hair, Kefla demands that he come at her, since she wants to test whether her type of fusion can surpass his. Gotenks agrees, smirking that she's not allowed to get mad when he beats her. That is until a gut shot too fast to comprehend wins him terribly, causing him to double over in pain.
Stop acting like a doofus and fight seriously!
At this point, Gohan steps back in to prevent a follow-up on this opening, causing Kefla to whine that it's no fun if Gotenks has outside help, to which Gohan in a Piccolo-esque tone points out the flaws in her logic.
You're the doofus. This tournament isn't for fun, it's for universal survival. Besides, part of you is Kale. I don't want you to rage out and kill someone.
Kefla smirks, as she guesses that's fine, since she's still the strongest fighter in this tournament, so in a way, he's really only saving her the effort of knocking him out later. Gohan tells her not to get overconfident, and then takes up his fighting stance, with Gotenks doing likewise after recovering a few moments later. The two Saiyan boys then leap into action, charging Kefla from either side, but the fusion is smart enough to overcome such simple tactics, effortlessly leaping up and out of the way. But her opponents are by no means novices, and so instead of colliding as she might have hoped, they spin on a dime and deliver a united blow to her back. Gotenks then breaks rank to battle Kefla alone for a moment, and in his Super Saiyan 3 state, he is able to give her quite the challenge. However, as is his way, Gotenks lets this small victory go to his head immediately, and he teasingly asks if she still thinks she's the strongest fighter in this tournament. Kefla responds with a smirk that worries Gohan, and so as the elder brother re-enters the fray, Kefla answers that she will be when she does this. Lightning then crackles in her aura, as her spiky greenish hair becomes more pronounced, and with a proud laugh, she declares herself unstoppable in Super Saiyan 2. Gohan thinks back to his own first time in Super Saiyan 2, and that sudden upswell of ego that it made him need to demean Cell before killing him by declaring his victory over the insect. And so, he warns Kefla not to let this power go to her head, but unsurprisingly, she tells him to cram it, since with this new strength, she can do whatever she wants. Giving a long, suffering sigh that cockiness must be a side effect of fusion, Gohan resumes his battle-ready position, determined not only to keep Kefla from giving into hubris, but also to protect Goten from a power that obviously rivals his Super Saiyan 3 state. The battle then resumes, the brothers fighting in tandem this time, as it seems that the gravity of Kefla's power has finally gotten through Gotenks' thick skull, and he doesn't attempt to face the other fusion alone again, instead following Gohan's lead as he makes tactical decisions that highlight his place as one of the most intelligent members of the team. Quickly, brains begin to triumph over brawn, and for the amalgamation of two already prideful people supplemented with the ego boost of Super Saiyan 2, this is wholly unacceptable. Kefla then screams out in rage at not being able to win this fight easily, and here Gotenks sees his chance, whispering to Gohan to stay back since he's got this. Seeing that devious smirk on Gotenks' face, Gohan can tell that this is more than a desire to show off. He actually has a strategy, and so the older brother puts his trust in the Metamorph fusion, giving him a nod and thumbs up. Gotenks then uses the cover of Kefla's freakout to fly right at her, flaring his aura protectively to cut through the ki radiating out from her as she screams. When he gets close, he hurls a barrage of galactic donuts which come at Kefla from various angles, forming a spherical cage around her before compressing into a small yellow orb roughly the size of a volleyball. Gotenks then smacks it over to Gohan, yelling at him to spike it into the air. A little startled, Gohan complies, launching the ball upwards with a powerful kick, and when it reaches the zenith of its arc, Gotenks jumps into the air and prepares to slam it out of the ring. However, before he can bring his interlocked fist down, a hand bursts from inside the orb and clasps over Gotenks' face. From the hole that it has made, cracks in the volleyball begin to spread, and in an instant, it explodes, revealing Kefla, looking pissed, but more importantly, bearing the unmistakable hallmarks of being a Super Saiyan 3.
Damn it!
I know I must look pretty freaking stupid, but
still,
this
this
feels
feels incredible!
Kefla then pile drives drives Gotenks into a nearby rock before firing a ki blast directly into his face that sends him flying through several more, adopting a manic smirk that looks a little too much like Kale's rage state for Gohan's liking. The female fusion declares that she owes Gotenks one for showing her this form, as well as putting her in a position where she'd get the push to unlock it. But she also owes him one hell of a beating for trapping her like that, so it was probably best to just call it even and get back to wiping the floor with him. This is too much for Gohan, and so he leaps in, but Kefla doesn't even look back, raising a hand behind her and lazily firing a blast which catches Gohan and sends him flying. She then advances on Gotenks, eager to test out her new powers. Despite looking pretty messed up, Gotenks rises to his feet and jeers at Kefla to bring it on, since he's still the Mac Daddy of Justice. He's still the strongest fusion the 7th has ever seen. He's still
a loser.
Kefla smirks as she vanishes and then reappears directly in front of him, planting a fist in his gut. Then with a slight delay to get 2 hits out of 1, she routes ki through that fist to blow Gotenks away. And in his exhausted state, he is not only unable to maintain the form of a Super Saiyan, but he is also unable to do anything but go flying out of the ring. Just before he is truly teleported into the stands, Gotenks diffuses, and as Goten and Trunks clutch their injuries, Kefla cackles that those two were pretty lame, though they were at least useful in helping her get this strong. But still, on the whole, nothing but a couple of runts who wouldn't last 5 minutes running with her gang. But suddenly, she then feels a sharp pain in the back of her head as she is slammed face first into the dirt. Rolling over, she sees Gohan, now in Super Saiyan himself. But this isn't the same. His golden aura now has a core of God Ki, and his eyes are completely whited out, a deific return of Gohan's rage.
Yeah, that's a transformation. Plus you get to keep your eyebrows. You gotta teach me.
I'm not giving you anything. You hurt my little brother's feelings.
He then pulls Kefla into a standing position, only to drive a fist into her face that knocks her back down again. What follows is a brutal battle, if it can be called such a thing, as Super Saiyan Rage Gohan vents his fury on Kefla, who simply cannot keep up, even with all the power Fusion and Super Saiyan 3 has granted her. But Gohan's mastery of himself in this timeline means he is not a sadist, even in this state. And so when it becomes clear that this is not a battle of equals, he swiftly moves into his endgame strategy. Planting a powerful kick on Kefla's stomach, Gohan sends the fusion stumbling back, and when he is sure she is off balance, he fires a Super Masen Kamehameha, which disintegrates a large portion of the battlefield and sends Kefla toppling into the void. And as she tries to bound off the shards of rubble to stay in the fight, she realizes Gohan in his rage is still smart enough to leave them all far too fragile for such a task, and begrudgingly recognizes it being bested.
Damn it! These Universe 7 dweebs really are super cool.
As the greenish-orange beam lights up the entire arena for a moment, all eyes are on Gohan, though most are split on their reaction to this battle.
Things are ramping up rather quickly.
These idiotic mortals will be the death of me, I just know it!
They're doing quite well for now. It's the end game you need to worry about.
Not wanting to let Gohan have all the fun, Goku leaps into action, with Vegeta following after, refusing to be left in the dust by the Son clan.
That's it. We know we all need to, and the weaklings are all gone. Yeah, let's rumble! No! We need to wait as long as we can.
Piccolo yells, but it's far too late, as the other two have already made a beeline for Jiren. However, before they can get anywhere near him, Toppo and Dispo leap down from their perches. Standing between the Saiyans and their target, the Pride Troopers declare that no one fights Jiren unless he wills it. But Vegeta smirking says that he does will it, and he's going to fight Jiren, one way or another. Though if he has to go through Toppo first, so be it, since that'll be more fun. And with that, Vegeta and Toppo then clash, while Goku claims that Vegeta's being selfish by leaving him the scrawny one. At this, Dispo chides that he's not scrawny, he's aerodynamic, before he uses his extreme speed to close the distance with Goku and lay into him with a flurry of blows. Surprised, Goku tries to dodge, but Dispo's speed is simply overwhelming, and so the slight edge and power the Saiyan has over the Pride Trooper in his base form means next to nothing. Meanwhile, Vegeta seems to be having the inverse problem. No matter how much he hits Toppo, the mustachioed alien only seems to be getting stronger, as if the damage is somehow fueling him. Toppo notices Vegeta's distress, and so rumbles that this is the power of a God of Destruction candidate, but it is not the only gift he has received, as he has also been blessed with the ability to destroy all. Vegeta knows enough about the dangers of Hakai energy to get out of the way when Toppo lobs an orb of it at him, and as he watches the ground where he just stood disintegrate into nothing, he knows that he will need to draw from his own bag of tricks to stand a chance. Powering up into Super Saiyan 3 himself, he redoubles his assault on Toppo by lighting up the void with a massive ki blast volley, while Goku takes his cue from Vegeta and also transforms into the state, using his power to bring his fight with Dispo back onto even footing by suddenly increasing his speed by a factor of 400. Sadly, not everyone is able to even unfavorable odds so easily. Case in point, Nail, who has been forced into a cat and mouse game with the fused Namekians from Universe 6, forcing him into strictly running gun tactics, having long since figured that they would regenerate from any attack he throws at them, and that he will have to buy time for one of his stronger teammates to help. However, Boo, who he is still partnered with, fails to notice Nail's distress since he doesn't sense any malice from his opponents, and so assumes that the three Namekians are simply playing a game of hide and seek, causing him to desperately demand to play as well. This unsurprisingly draws the attention of Sal, Nell, and Polina, who fire a psychic attack at the Universe 7 pair in an attempt to immobilize Nail without harming him physically. That way, he will remain at full power when it comes time to add him to their collective energy. Nail yells at Boo to dodge, but the portly Jin has always been a bit slow on the uptake, and since the attack isn't a powerful ki blast, he assumes it will simply bounce off its bulk, and so spins round to see what has Nail so flustered. This results in him taking the full brunt of the psychic assault, and deep inside Boo's mind, something that never should have come undone does. Locked away in the deepest recesses of Boo's consciousness, his own evil, which was thought to be removed, is forcefully reawakened by this mental attack, and black smoke begins to billow out of Boo. Though Piccolo may have wished it away, one cannot ever fully remove negative energy, especially one who hopes to act as a guardian charged to witness the evil in men's hearts daily, such as Boo had as the next god of Earth. A few years into Boo's training, in fact, Piccolo had attempted to help create a defensive layer of psychic barriers in Boo's mind to help him deal with all the rampant evil he was witnessing, as it always seemed to easily disturb him. And those very barriers had just been shattered, allowing those horrible memories to flood back to the Jin with such force that it causes Piccolo to physically stagger. By this point, Goku's fight with Dispo and Vegeta's fight with Toppo have gotten into full swing, with fragments of the arena coming apart every time the fearsome fighters clash. However, a strange burst of power draws all of their attention back to Boo. In fact, the chaotic sight and bizarre feeling of energy quickly rising is enough to pause the fighting, and even Jiren's meditation as all feel something terrible happening. As the smoke clears away, gone is the fat and jolly Boo our heroes have befriended and lived alongside all these years, and replacing him as a much leaner and younger looking creature, the sight of which causes Universe 7's Supreme Kai to nearly faint out of fear and shock. But this new form of Boo, however, is apparently asleep. An eerie silence fills the world of the void that is suddenly broken by an enraged scream of Kid Boo, who begins going wild, as his energy is enough to blow the three Namekians away simply from the power of his voice, as he beats his chest and gains the immediate attention of nearly all the fighters remaining, many of the bold and brazen rushing towards him to accept his challenge for a fight. However, Boo simply lifts a hand, and Piccolo's eyes widen with fear as he can sense the ridiculous lethal potential of this attack, and before he knows it, a massive pink beam is fired up into the air, and then begins to rain down as an extinction level technique that splinters off in order to hit everyone present. Acting fast, Piccolo draws on the mystical power his training under the old Kai gave access to neutralize the lethal nature of this attack with a wizard barrier. But spread between so many, he can do little but dampen its power, meaning that each individual fighter must rely on their own strength to fully withstand the hail of blasts. Because of this and everyone's exhaustion at this point in the fight, several notable fighters including Kaba and Frost lack the necessary power, and so when the pink energy bolt strikes their barriers, it burrows through, exploding against their chests and sending them spiraling out of the ring. At this, Boo cackles madly at the carnage he has created, and when Nail, who had managed to stay in the ring thanks to being buried under rubble, calls out to Piccolo to ask how many fighters are left, the Guardian grimly replies,
12.
Piccolo then turns his eyes onto Boo, who is shooting him a predatory leer, and in a resigned voice says that he doesn't want to fight his student. But the Supreme Kai warns that this is not his student. Not really. It is the scourge of the 7th universe, let loose to wreak horrible vengeance once more. Frantically, Shin calls to Beers to Hakai Boo before he starts consuming the gods again, and when he refuses, puts his entreaty to the Omni Kings, saying that Boo is an existential threat not just to the 7th universe, but to the multiverse. The Xenos consider this plea, but are halted when Piccolo barks at the Kai.
Don't be so hasty, I can fix this. I just need to get through to Boo.
Shin moans that it's too dangerous, but using logic to win Supreme Kai over, Piccolo says that unless he tries, their team will be losing a powerful member for nothing. Testily, Beerus agrees, though he snarls that if Piccolo gets himself eliminated for this and winds up costing their team 2 fighters rather than 1, then he'll Hakai both of them for making their universe look bad. Swallowing his pride, Piccolo thanks the Destroyer and gets to work. However, he is not alone. Jiren, having been moved by Piccolo's loyalty to his disciple, steps up.
You seem like a good master. I will assist you, Namekian, at least until this threat is subdued or eliminated. What do you need?
Seeing the logic and help, Piccolo quickly nods his appreciation, and so the pair form up to make a plan. Goku and Vegeta also attempt to come to their friend's aid, but Toppo and Dispo stand in their way, declaring that they're not letting the Saiyans get away, since what's to say once Boo's dealt with, they won't all gang up on Jiren. No, instead, they're going to stay right here and finish their fight, whether they want to or not. Now with time and remaining fighters dwindling and the stakes getting higher, Goku and Vegeta smirk that if the Pride Troopers want to stand in the way, then it's their funeral, before lunging at them in unison. Meanwhile, Boo has begun forming dozens dozens of miniature clones of himself whose purpose seems to be overwhelming the remaining fighters, and causing as much chaos as possible. For fighters like Gohan, who has fallen out of his Super Saiyan rage state, and the other Namekians, these tiny terrors pose quite a serious threat, and so Piccolo dispatches Jiren to deal with them while he handles the primary Buu. Running in, Piccolo's first move is not to attack, but to immobilize Buu, launching his stretchy arms to wrap around the Jin and bind him in place. He then declares that he knows this isn't Buu, it's just its inner darkness manifesting itself, and reminding the student that he'd come to see as his own child that he once let darkness twist his personality and cause a rift between him and the people he loved. But he's not going to let that happen to Buu, because he is here for him, and he knows that Buu is stronger than the painful emotions controlling him. Buu, however, disagrees. Or perhaps that is just Piccolo attempting to rationalize the seemingly random acts of cruelty that follow as the Jin melts into a puddle to escape his master's hold, then reforms right in front of him. Laughing maniacally, Buu then plants a hand on either of Piccolo's shoulders and forcibly extends his elastic arms so that they tear Piccolo's right out of their sockets. The Jin then retracts them just as quickly to slap the Namekian in the back of the head with his own arms, sending him crashing into the dirt. Regenerating new arms with a growl, Piccolo wipes blood from the corner of its mouth and sighs.
Sorry, Boo. You've left me no choice. I hope we're both around long enough for you to forgive me.
He then lets out another louder roar as he begins to transform. Meanwhile, with Jiren's help, the Saiyans and Pride troopers begin to clear away the horde of Buu clones who have targeted them as the strongest group. Vegeta and Dispo working in tandem while Vegeta does likewise with Toppo, and amidst them, Jiren stands alone, mowing through Buus with ruthless efficiency. When the pink pests are dealt with, Jiren moves on to the next batch, while Goku, Vegeta, Toppo, and Dispo all share a look that says that alliance was only a temporary one, which has run its course. As such, they then return to their own battle, but by now, the Saiyans have concluded that holding back won't work against these guys, and so go into Super Saiyan God. Their transformations just so happen to line up with Piccolo's ascension into his Dragon Warrior state, so that for one glorious moment, 3 new radiant powers fill the arena. They then each lunge at their targets, though here, Piccolo differs from his friends, since instead of moving into attack, when he comes in contact with Buu, he gently lays his hands on his apprentice's forehead, and channels the increase in magical power this transformation has granted him to suddenly re-establish Buu's psychic barriers. This, however, does leave him open for one last wild blow from Buu, which turns his head hard. However, in doing this, Piccolo pushes forward. For a moment, the master and student are perfectly still, waiting to see if this gamble has come down on the side of success or failure.
Is it time for candy?
However, not everyone is aware that the plan has succeeded just yet. As a small ways away, Salnell, Polina, and Nail have called a temporary truce in the face of Buu's new unbelievable power, which still burns fiercely despite his return to the side of good. And though Nail wants to believe in his master, the same worries that plagued him during the lead up to the tournament fill him again. Worries of being too weak to be helpful, and his weakness leading to the erasure of his universe in total. As a result, when Salnell suggests a radical solution to their Buu problem, Nail accepts without fully considering the ramifications. Back with Piccolo, he is now in damage control mode, looking around to check on his teammates, but when he sees the other 3 Namekians huddled together with Salnell placing a hand on both Nail and Polina's chests, his stomach drops. In their place is a new Namekian brimming with power, though their ki is not stable. Instead, it is roiling like a stormy sea. But Piccolo thinks he understands what is happening. This was a union made in crisis and under great pressure, so the melding likely was not as smooth as it otherwise might have been. Little does he know that this is not the Universe 6 Namekian's first fusion, having overlooked the duo as part of the disposal of first wave fighters. And fearfully, he freezes at the thought of what Nail may add to what already must be an explosive maelstrom of interweaving power when combining so many dissonant personalities together. His answer is that the result is as chaotic as it is mighty. So mighty is it, in fact, that this new nameless Namekian begins to grip their head and scream in pain as if racked by a truly splitting migraine, even digging its nails into its own head and scratching as if trying to relieve pain with pain. But each scratch heals as quickly as it is made, and as his ki swells, so does his body, to quickly ridiculous proportions, as even Goku is shocked into stopping his chasing of Dispo, seeing the old gigantifying technique Piccolo complained about being too costly and self-damaging to take any further, being applied to scale this Namekian monstrosity to near 2 times those old sizes, a clear sign of the regenerative abilities of this fearsome new threat on shocking display.
Get a hold of yourself, you slugs!
Champa petulantly shrieks, incensed by the thought that somehow the weaker of Beerus' Namekians hoodwinked his 2 and is now immobilizing them from within, so that the other one can score a cheap ring out on some of his strongest fighters. However, this is very much the wrong thing to say, as this mix of Namekians now suddenly have a unifying factor: their rage at Champa for this insult. And so, through their new form's mouth, the fusion bellows.
We not Slug!
As his voice echoes with his ki, the ill-christened slug expands his aura with enough force that pieces of the arena crack off and go flying through the air at high speed. Gohan, exhausted from powering Kefla out of bounds and dealing with Boo's rampage, is too slow to avoid the same fate, quickly appearing in the stands with Goten and Trunks. Afterwards, still racked with the pain of the nearly indestructible stone nearly obliterating him, had he not buffed his own aura for defense in time. Hit, realizing the damage this could have on anyone weaker than that, moves through time in order to make sure Universe 6 wasn't the last one standing via lethal force.
In the center of the ring, Slug is going wild. Hit realizes that even if this causes the Six to win, it'll come at a great cost. And so for the good of the multiverse, this monster must be defeated. Weighing his options, Hit chooses Goku and Vegeta, Top, Piccolo, and Jiren as his best allies for the fight ahead. And so using the time skip and dispo speed, they're gathered up for the battle to come. Arriving at a safe point near the edge of the ring, the 8 remaining heroes deliberate how to best solve their slug problem. It's decided that Piccolo and Top will be the first to take a crack at calming Slug's rage, with the remaining 6 allies ready to back him up if things go bad. Meanwhile, up above, the Omni Kings are enamored by the kaiju, and so announce that he'll be allowed to stay in the ring since it'll make for a cool fight. Landing beside Slug, Piccolo tries to reason with the part of him that's Nail. But as he only lets out a berserk scream that paralyzes the Guardian, the group resorts to Plan B. As Slug manifests the Kaioken to an unimaginable magnitude. One by one, everybody seems to be knocked out of commission by their aggressor, with the belief that Goku and Vegeta have been knocked out of bounds by their own attack. But just as all seems hopeless, 2 mighty auras, one of light and one of darkness, ignite the sky, as Goku and Vegeta are revealed to have survived their encounter, and awaken with new powers to face Slug's overwhelming strength. Meanwhile, Piccolo, having recovered, tells the Saiyans to keep Slug busy as he charges something. He thinks he might have a way to defeat this fusion. Happy to comply, Jiren and Buu fall back to rest and to protect Piccolo. And in their new unnamed forms, Goku and Vegeta charge Slug. Protecting him, Jiren asks the Namekian what he's doing, with Piccolo grunting that he's using his new ultimate move, the Shadow Dragon technique. His draconic features begin to fade in favor of his usual appearance, with the only thing remaining from his Dragon Warrior form being the tail. From it bursts the familiar form of Shenron, through whose mouth Piccolo charges his most powerful move yet, the Inochi no Hikari, or the Light of Life. Seeing Slug has been tired out enough not to withstand this move, Piccolo tells his brother and Vegeta to get back. And since both Saiyans are thoroughly exhausted by now, they give no complaint. As they retreat, Slug turns, only to take the blast to the face. He vanishes in a flash of light, leaving no trace behind.
Exhausted, Goku jokes that his brother at least always comes through when needed, but stresses that he really has to make the charge-up times on these techniques better. Vegeta, with his face on the ground, laughs in agreement, but marvels that his Namekian rival could destroy Slug, when the strange destroyer energy he and Toppo were making use of was able to be resisted. Piccolo, for his part, admits that it was a gamble, but he decided to take the opposite approach. Instead of trying to outpower and destroy all of Slug, Piccolo simply divided him, explaining that he used his Shadow Dragon technique to have Shenron fire off what was actually a beam of pure, concentrated creation energy. The really hard part was the math. At this, Goku and Vegeta raised their eyebrows, while Piccolo points to the once mostly empty stands, now swollen to the gills of the recreated forms of Universe 6 Namekians and Nail, as Buu tries to count using his fingers, and the Grand Priest waits to hear the Omni King's ruling on this. Piccolo describes recreating each individual Namekian as no easy task. Still, with Slug finally defeated, our heroes all breathe a collective sigh of relief, until they feel an almost equally massive ki swelling in their midst. Looking around, the Universe 7 fighters are all dismayed to see the seemingly kindly Jiren's fiery aura encasing him once again.
How could you hold back so much power just to betray us?
My apologies, but only one universe can be spared from oblivion, and it must be the 11th. Besides, the clock is wound down to just 3 minutes. If it's any solace, I will remember you all as true warriors.
Jiren then expands his aura with the intent of blowing these 4 remaining fighters out of bounds. With Goku and Piccolo being nearest to him, raise their own ki as a barrier to try and ward off the oncoming rush of power. But sadly, after all the damage and fatigue they've amassed throughout the tournament, it is a futile effort, and they begin to get pushed back according to Jiren and Belmont's plan. Looking at each other, the adopted brothers prepare to face their end and the end of their universe as warriors, fighting up until the very last second. But then, each feel a hand press against the small of their backs, as everything goes dark suddenly due to Boo seemingly engulfing the entire trio. Goku looks back to see Vegeta pressing his hands onto his and Piccolo's backs, learning from his bouts with Toppo, and transferring all the energy he has gained while being damaged in his new purple power-up. This leaves the Saiyan Prince drained and in base form, just as Boo uses the last of his energy in order to heal both Goku and Piccolo as best he can. Just as quickly as they move to save their friends, do they begin to slip away under the force of Jiren's unhalting assault, Vegeta half sternly and half jokingly growling,
"Don't screw this up, you two!"
as Boo gives his own farewell, though it is only a nod. Vegeta and Boo are then thrown from the ring, and as Jiren sees figures appear in the Universe 7 section of the stands, he slightly lets off his attack for a single instant, believing himself to be the victor already. However, to his horror, he suddenly feels his expanding ki being pushed back completely, as what emerges from the Aura Inferno is a newly reinvigorated Goku and Piccolo, and so furiously, Jiren demands an explanation.
No, how can you persist in the face of despair?
Because we trust each other! Because we're a family! Because we are going to beat you!
And with this declaration, Goku and Piccolo charge forward. Jiren prepares to blow them back again, but the duo are ready this time, leaping sideways in unison, then striking the Great Goliath from either side. A lifetime of teamwork makes this duo the perfect combat partners, and just as easily as breathing, they play off each other's strikes, capitalizing on weaknesses the other creates, or defending their partner by drawing Jiren's attention before he can land a battle-ending blow. However, for all their efforts, they only manage to push Jiren a few feet closer to the edge of the ring, and at no point are any of them under the illusion that the Universe 7 duo are actually winning. Jiren then strikes back, throwing a single punch which knocks Goku into a clump of rocks, followed by an elbow off the other arm which sends Piccolo right after him. The Gray then chastises them, coldly declaring that their trust is nothing compared to pure singular power, while raising a hand to throw everything he has left at the two in a singular blazing red ki blast which will surely blow them both off the tattered arena. However, in the rubble, Goku and Piccolo give each other a look, a smile cresting both their lips, as briefly they fist bump, knowing exactly what they have to do to end this. Two vast auras then burst to life, before coming together to form a singular godly force, which coats both Goku and Piccolo. The pair then leap forward once more, shoulder to shoulder with a fist each outstretched, just as Jiren releases his blast, and the Universe 7 duo begin to clash against it. The energy blast buckles in the center for a moment, causing Jiren to slightly panic, and use the scraps of his stamina to reinforce it, as two trails of ki begin to flow behind the warriors raised on Earth. Jiren demands to know what this is, but he need not wait long for its answer, as at that moment, the ki trails mold themselves into a draconic duo, one green and the other gold, and he only then notices Piccolo's tail had returned, signaling both the return of his Dragon Warrior mode and his use of the Shadow Dragon technique. And thus, in perfect unison, Piccolo and Goku cry out in joyous unity,
Brothers Dragon Fist!
As the beam of ki is condensed into a ball, it soon gives way, and they burst through in order to ram their fist with Jiren's chest. For a moment, the behemoth from Universe 11 hangs in midair as the twin phantasmal dragons run through him, and then, after what feels like an eternity, he falls out of the ring, unable to continue any further, as Piccolo and Goku nearly follow behind him, if not for the brothers in arms catching one another. The cheers from the Universe 7 section are deafening, as with a heavy thud, Jiren lands beside his teammates in the stands. He then locks eyes with the exhausted Namekian, and there is no enmity in either set as they share a respectful nod, right before the 11th is erased. There is a moment of deliberation between the two Omni Kings, before the Grand Priest floats down to the ring and addresses the brothers. He tells them that after much consideration, the title of MVP has been awarded to Piccolo, meaning the wish on the Super Dragon Balls is his. Goku chuckles that he would have liked to get that, but it's okay, since he's pretty sure he and Piccolo were going to wish for the same thing anyway. Piccolo nods, saying of course this is the case, and that his wish is simply for all the erased universes to be restored. The Grand Priest cocks an eyebrow, asking if he's sure, suggesting that his wish could grant him literally anything he desires, but Piccolo remains resolute, saying that this is not about what he desires, it's about what's right. This makes the Grand Priest titter, but he says that if that is Piccolo's wish, then it shall be granted. granted. He then summons Super Shenron and makes the wish, grinning to himself that had it been any other wish, Lord Zeno certainly would have erased the 7th universe as well for failing this test, as all their fallen former rivals are wished right back into existence in their home universes. All are shocked and feel a tad guilty for how they treated or looked upon the 7. Nonetheless, they are truly thankful to them. A few hours later, a giant celebration is taking place on the lookout. Team Universe 7, their friends, and family are all in high spirits, not only thanks to their victory, but also the euphoria born of nearly avoiding oblivion. From the corner, Piccolo contently watches as a tipsy Gohan tries to cheer up an ashamed Nail, who tries to spin the party way on everyone else's needs and prostrating himself in embarrassment. But the hybrid Saiyan drags he and the seemingly lovesick Goten and Trunks in order to monopolize the karaoke machine, while Boo, for some reason remaining in his new youthful and more Piccolo-influenced stoic form, shows that the more things change, the more they remain the same, as he himself holds his own monopoly on both the confection tables for the pudding and cupcakes, creating tension between himself and Beerus, only eased when Bowman reveals a secret batch made just for he and Whis. It is an overwhelmingly joyous affair, except for the fact that 2 key figures are missing. Slipping away, the God of Earth finds Goku and Vegeta tiptoeing towards the time chamber, and so sneaks up behind them and plants a hand on each of their shoulders. In a stern voice, the Namekian asks the pair are really sneaking off to train at a time like this.
Yeah, we are. That a problem, Lord Kami?
Piccolo matches this gaze for a second, his stony expression giving nothing away. Then, a faint smile twitches at the edge of his mouth as he replies,
Yeah, there is, if you really think I'm gonna let you do it without me.
But that, friends, is where we'll be leaving this story off as you know it for right now. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed, but you don't actually have to leave just yet. I am actually going to leave the sign out section open for myself to just kind of ramble and talk about some things that didn't fit anywhere else in the video. This is going to be stuff ranging from why certain things happened in the part as they did to my future plans for this series. However, this segment will be cut out of any full story comps, so if you are interested, feel free to watch a different video of mine or something. Also, before we do, I don't know if you can actually hear it based off like how I sound now compared to how I sounded during the actual narration of the video, but it's been a few days since all that was recorded, and I've actually kind of gone through being sick and have now kind of gotten out of it, so I probably do sound kind of mad. So for some story beats that we just kind of couldn't fit in, very obviously there are key players from Universe 6 who just don't get to do much in this part, and that's mostly by design. Kaba, Hit, and Frost obviously just didn't get to do much, and that's sad, but at the same time, they also got to have an entire part to themselves when we did the Terminal Destroyers. This is also the reasoning pretty much for the 7-man team versus the 10-man team setup and the way that I paced the tourney. I was attempting to strike a decent balance between the manga and the anime's pacing for the Tournament of Power, since if you've seen both, you know Toei really drags out a lot of the tournament, while Toyotawa pretty much speedruns it. And there are pros and cons to both these speeds, so I did as best as I could to try and strike a balance and just spend time on stuff we care about with the characters we care about. Hence 7-man teams, because the original TOP was by design bloated with a bunch of nobodies that don't really leave an impression. So it just made sense to kind of boil it down to 7 characters who would leave an impression, and if they weren't going to leave an impression, you could kind of just chalk them down to, hey, they're fodder that get eliminated within the first opening minutes of the tournament pretty much. Piccolo's new Shadow Dragon technique, and yes, this is actually what he was about to use against Beerus back in part 8 before he was interrupted. Shadow Dragon was an idea I had the moment Dragon Warrior mode kind of popped into my head. The idea of Shenron getting to join into the fray of the fighting always having really intrigued me, since design-wise, he is the quintessential dragon in my eyes. In IMO, he will always be one of the coolest parts of the series. However, whenever there is a threat, because of the nature of the Dragon Balls, he is fairly useless because his power is tied to his creators. So in this verse where Shenron's Dragon Balls don't really exist anymore, Piccolo is for all intents and purposes Shenron's current creator / his current set of active Dragon Balls. Pun not intended. Meaning, Shenron in this context can do whatever Piccolo can do at the time. The beauty of the technique coming from the fact that it takes the concept behind the defeat of Raditz to make the special beam cannon viable and shifts it so that Piccolo can be self-sufficient. He can go out and attack or bind opponents to keep them busy while Shenron charges up an attack or prepares something the fighters need. And in a way, this is really what the true Dragon Warrior mode is. Won't be the pinnacle of Piccolo's power in this universe, we may come back and do something different. I have toyed with a few things, but they would probably be used to defeat bigger and stronger opponents down the line. That's another reason why, if you remember earlier on back in Terminal Destroyers, I decided that in this verse, much like in the manga, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken just wasn't really going to exist. I know there is an instance of Goku using it in the manga, it's just not really used in the same way and it's not very effective. So maybe against one of our future big bads, we'll actually see Blue Kaioken or maybe Dragon Warrior Mode Kaioken at some point. I also know there's a lot I want to do with the idea and the concept of Super Shenron, the Super Dragon Ball, Zalama, and Piccolo maybe training under one or the other. Moving on, let's talk about why I wanted to wait for Superhero. It was the music. I swear the biggest reason I wanted to wait was just because I knew the film OST and stuff like Dokkan would provide some amazing tracks and I didn't want to miss out on those. However, I will admit, while sitting in the theater for the first time, I was having my ego stroked since the new Piccolo forms did end up kind of matching what I had set up for my headcanon form, near verbatim actually. It's a form unlocked through the potential system Guru and Elder Kai introduced, and is something that Shenron is heavily involved in. Like, obviously I'm a bit more partial to what I came up with, but still, to get so close to what actually ended up becoming canon, even if I did pull on pretty obvious threads, makes me really happy as someone who, when writing Dragon Ball stories, is trying to put himself in Toriyama's shoes as much as possible. And finally, for this sign out ramble section, the future of this series. The next immediate order of business for this story is reduxing parts 1 through 4, as they were made before I changed my current mic. However, in terms of real future plans, once that is done, I will be combining parts 1 through 10 into a full story video, and then following that, as in likely not until the current arc of the Super manga is concluded, and then maybe a bit of whatever is afterwards, since it seems like Frieza will be the main antagonist and driving force of that part. I will be making a special that will cover the events of Granola and Moro, as well as Broly and Superhero in this universe to go alongside it. Now, thankfully, I got all my shoutouts done at the beginning, so that means all we have to do now is sing the praises of our amazing patrons. And I want to give them a truly heartfelt thanks, since the funding from these guys makes commissioning stuff like voice acting, art, and manga panels possible in the first place, as YouTube ad revenue is not dependable. So, Crimson Manifesto, DJ the Lazy Gamer, Dominique, Knuckles OX, Pizza 15X, Aaron Winters, Narku, Normandy 1998, Jay Ray, Stephen Norton, Xiao P, Anthony Canales, Daniel Smith, Inebriated, Infernate Beast 326, Jamal Hayden, Kevin, Adrian Carr, Samuel Viveros, Vegito Gaming 78, and Zach Haji. Thank you all so much for everything you do for this channel. Please consider joining the ranks and visiting my Patreon page via the link in the doobly-doo, or by going to www.patreon.com/plusultraman. For now though, remember to take care of yourselves and the world around you, and as always, go beyond plus ultra. And we'll see you guys next time.